NWO Sports Podcast. Here's your host, Logan Bailey.
Welcome to the NWO Sports Podcast, football edition, brought to you by our primary sponsor, 3Chord. I'm your host, Logan Bailey, and joined today on the show is Keith Brown, Tony Fairchild, and AJ Fairchild. So thanks for coming on the show, guys.
No problem.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, it is officially round 3 of the OHSAA football playoffs, and last week we were able to see a lot of good games and a lot of heartbreaks too. But what are your thoughts going into round 3? And we're getting late in the season here in the football year.
Just gotta say, special teams. It's kind of gonna be the forte of this conversation today. But man, work on your special teams going into round 3. Yikes.
Yeah, that's kind of what's we talked about it. We've been talking about it all year, and it come into play a couple times here in the round 2.
Yep, good week 2, and hopefully a better week 3 of games.
Again, everything just gets tougher. You're going to match up against better teams every week, and you just got to, you're hoping you're hitting your stride as we go in here.
And something too, going into this week, I saw the weather's supposed to start getting a little bit colder. No more 70-degree temperature and no precipitation. I think this Friday and Saturday it's supposed to be like 50s and lower than that. I think on Saturday too.
Yeah.
So
I think your Friday is about at kickoff will probably be about close to 15, 20 degrees different. So your Friday night still decent, but then Saturday turns to more November playoff football weather. So
it's supposed to be going from like 70s like Thursday to like 40s on Saturday. Yeah. So it's going to be chilly. And as probably Friday night as the game time, like Keith was saying, it's going to be like temperature's going to be going down. So
it'll be interesting, I think, too, to see how the kids respond coming out in the games because they haven't had to play in the cold weather.
Right. No.
I mean, really, when you're throwing that football and you're holding on to it, your hands, when they're cold, they're not the same when it's 70 degrees
absolutely.
out. So maybe a lot more turnovers possibly, but I think that's something be curious to see and keep your eye out for.
Football gets a little slipperier as the temperature falls. So
kids relying on those gloves a little more.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's look at how we did for last week's picks. Of course, Keith and AJ led the way again. Both went 6-2 last week, and AJ still leads the year by 1 win and a record of 178-45. Keith is second with 177-46 record. I am now third with 169-54 record. Tony slips to fourth with 168-55 record, and Bryce is fifth with 165-58 record. Which, if you look at it, he's really not that far away from everyone else. So he's just kind of stayed in last, but he's still not too far out of the race. So, AJ.
I just want to let the record show that Keith and I did not pick the same picks last week.
No, we did not.
Flopped. I had Defiance picked, and he had Mansfield Senior. Defiance ended up losing, but I had Columbus Grove, and he had Northwestern. So we're not picking the same. Just happened to work out that way.
I actually said that a couple of times during last week's picks. I was like, I was going to go the other way on this one.
Yeah, things are winding down. So these next couple of weeks worth of picks, as long as teams are still in the playoffs, they're going to be crucial. So I think it's safe to say that the winner's probably going to either be Keith or AJ because I think Tony and myself keep distancing kind of away from them, and Bryce is still in last too. So
you forgot to mention that Bryce went 6-2 also.
Yeah, that's true. Bryce went 6-2. I forgot about that. Yeah, and I went 5-3 last week, and Tony went 4-4. So. Pretty tough week for everyone but those three. So
I thought I was doing well, man. I thought the halftime score with Defiance, Keith read it off with 16-0 Defiance, and then they must have had it wrong. So it turns around it was 16-0 the other
somebody
way.
Posted the wrong score.
And then Sonora was winning there for the first half and into the third quarter. I'm like, man, I'm going to do pretty well this week, and not so much. Wheels kind of fell off.
One thing I wanted to point out, too, is Drew Pastor's Fantastic 50. That man is a genius because I said, going into that game, the Sonora-Elmwood game, he had predicted Elmwood wins the game by 20 points. And at halftime, I was feeling pretty confident, like there's no way this is going to happen. But by the end of the game, Elmwood ended up winning by, 19 points? That's 1 point off, and that's pretty darn accurate. And I believe this last week, out of all the playoff games in the state of Ohio, he was like 90% accurate, too. So
that's crazy.
Wow. If you want some good information on Ohio high school football, check him out. I can't say that enough. So
I had said that the only way that game was going to be a 20-point game is if the wheels kind of fell off the wagon for Tenora, and sure enough, as we'll talk about here soon, things went downhill pretty quick in that second half.
let's move on here to round 2 playoff game recaps, and we're going to look at the NWO Sports Game of the Week first, and that would be Liberty Benton at Liberty Center, and Liberty Center handled business, and they won 41-7. Going into this game, we thought it may be close considering Liberty Benton's offense, what they did to Archbold the prior week. They put up 603 yards of offense, which I don't know if Liberty Center's really faced a true passing offense all year long, but I mean, it didn't even phase Liberty Center's defense, and I think this game from last week just goes to show that they are just one of the most complete teams in Division 5, and they just continue to be dominant week after week. And I mean, really, they had absolutely no trouble with Liberty Benton's passing attack. And at halftime, the score was Liberty Center was up 27-0. So I mean, that's almost a running clock to start the third quarter. So that's very impressive. Looking at a couple stat leaders here, Colton Cruz had a very nice game for Liberty Center, running back, 13 carries, 137 rushing yards. He averaged 10.31 yards a carry and had 2 rushing touchdowns. Matthew Orr, again, another quality performance, 16 carries, 85 rushing yards, 5.31 yards a carry and 3 rushing touchdowns. And then Zane Zeider, the quarterback, he's been a staple in that offense all year long. He was efficient, going 6 of 8, 75% completion percentage. He had 95 passing yards, and he threw in a passing touchdown as well. So what are your guys' thoughts on this game from last week?
Just goes to show me we were right about Liberty Center just coming in. Because we discussed last week about Liberty Benton. Maybe, after what they did to Archbold, like you mentioned, it kind of like, well, see what Liberty Center is really made of. And like you said, Liberty Center's defense, which we knew was tough, like you said, didn't even Liberty Center just went at them. I mean, and it just kind of proves to me Liberty Center, how good Liberty Center really is.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you dominate Archbold the previous week, you expect this game here to be a little closer, at least to halftime into the third quarter. But yeah, Liberty Center just came out and put the gas to the floor, and and best part about it is, I mean, Zane Zeider only threw the ball 8 times, so they got such a big lead that really didn't have to show too much in the second half as far as, your next game for scouting purposes. So not that Liberty Center's flashy anyways. I mean, they just pretty much get what you get with them. So
yeah, and you kind of said something there, Dad, that we keep talking about what is Liberty Center made of. We've said it several times throughout the season, but man, they continue to prove exactly what they're made of. They're just a unstoppable force. Even when there's games like this where we're like, maybe it'll be a close game. It's not. It's not even close. It's like, man, Liberty Center just continues to prove to us time and time again what they're made of. So.
Yeah, they'll have a tough competition this week. They're going against Coldwater, and big old MAC schools down there. They're always tough. But I tell you what, Liberty Center took care of business this week, and kind of surprised me when I saw the score was 41-7.
I think something too that goes for Liberty Center is it doesn't show up in the stat book, but is their pure physicality. Yeah. I mean, we saw them play against the Tenora, and you see highlights here and there. They just wear teams down because they are so physical, and they go into that game and they just manhandle people around, especially on the offensive and defensive line. Yeah. And when you can do that, especially late in the year, things get colder, teams tend to run the ball a little bit more, weather gets bad. Good luck if you're the opposing team, because Liberty Center is just they're gonna just shut you down right away.
The one thing I'm gonna be concerned about, Liberty Center's they don't two platoon, but when they played against Sonora, they were running a lot of kids on and off the field. When you get down against the MAC schools, they have a lot of kids also. Yes. So, you're playing Liberty Bentons and Archbolds and stuff where they have a lot of kids are going both ways, and you're basically two platoon. I mean, Sonora did that a few years ago, and so when you get down against those bigger schools like the MAC schools and stuff like that, we'll see how they respond.
Yeah, they'll be able to keep up with you going into the second half.
Yeah.
I thought one more thing that was interesting from this game that kind of goes out to a credit for the defensive backs. I know they gave up some passing yards to Liberty Benton's quarterback, but they only had 1 sack in the game, and that was to Owen Box. And you think that their defensive line would have had more sacks to help their defensive backs out, but I think that goes to a credit that their defensive backs were able to cover and hold Liberty Benton only to 7 points in the whole game.
Yeah, that was, I think, a late fourth quarter score.
Late fourth quarter as well, and Landon Cruz was able to come up with an interception too. So again, credit goes out to the secondary for Liberty Center, which I think was still kind of a big question mark because they haven't really been tested all year long in the passing game. So I tell you what, I just can't wait for this matchup this week with Liberty Center and Coldwater, and we'll get to that later. But man, oh man, talk about two tough teams and two historically amazing programs.
Yep. Just looking here, just really quick. I'm a stat guy, right? Keith always calls me the coach, but I looked out through Liberty Center. Defense only had one penalty. I'm a 15-yard penalty. It's a game changer, man. I'm telling you, those are like what I call the stupid stats that don't show up anywhere.
Right.
But if you're a disciplined team and you don't have penalties, you're not giving away free yards, and that's huge.
I think we've seen that too. Even Sonora the 1 week and some other schools, man, they have a lot of penalty yards, and that will come back to bite you in the butt later in the playoffs. Especially each round gets more and more difficult, and that's something you can control most of the time. Is those are the penalties, the false starts, the offsides, all that you can avoid for the most part. And if you can give yourself any kind of advantage, more power to you. So
absolutely.
Let's move on to the next game here. Sonora at Elmwood, and this is the game that we were at. We kind of talked about it a little bit, but Elmwood ended up winning that game 34-15, and I tell you what, it was a tale of two halves because at halftime, Sonora led 12-7. They were playing great football, both offense, defense, and special teams, but you come out of halftime, and Elmwood just came out in the second half and showed everyone in the stadium why they are the number 2 seed in Division 5, Region 18. And I just thought, personally, it was incredible to see Elmwood come out like they did in the second half. I mean, they began to speed up the tempo. They ran that hurry-up offense, and they just drove down the field at will, and there was nothing that Sonora could do to stop them. And we saw that, and it was just like, oh, good heavens, because it was tough to stop. And there's not many teams around that will run an offense like that, and it was just all gas and no breaks from Elmwood. So what are your guys' thoughts on the game that we were at last week?
Yeah, I guess my first thought is when people see the final score 34-15, they're like, well, Elmwood probably dominated Sonora. I would say midway through the third quarter, Sonora had a firm handle on the game. I mean, they were driving to actually go ahead. What was it, 12? Was it 12-7?
12-7.
Had a first and goal.
First and goal inside the 5.
Inside the 5. They had a third and half a yard, third and goal from the half-yard line, and ran their bread and butter play, pitch out. I mean, blocking wasn't there, got a 4 or 5 yard loss, and we had to settle for a field goal. Rams are still up 15-7 with about 5 minutes to go in the third quarter.
Right.
And that's basically when we just saw Elmwood just, I don't know what happened. They just transformed into a transformer because they just were unstoppable for about a 6-8 minute period.
Well, Elmwood drove down the field and scored, and Sonora still had the lead 17-13.
Right, they did.
You're right. They missed a 2-point conversion. Yep. So, so 2 minutes to go in the third quarter, I think Sonora still had the lead.
Even though, which we talked about on that drive, as Elmwood was going down the score, you almost felt like, I guess it was the next drive. Sonora still led by 2. Elmwood got the ball back after, I think, an interception.
Yeah.
But as Elmwood was marching just down the field at will, you almost could see that the Rams were struggling on defense, and you kind of felt that Sonora was losing, even though they were still ahead as we headed into the late third quarter. So it was, I mean, the final score was 34-15, but I mean, Sonora actually led most of the game, honestly, up until late third quarter.
That drive after the interception, you would have thought that Sonora was getting beat 34-17 or whatever at that point already, because it just seemed like the energy died after that interception. They were still winning. But the tempo that Elmwood came back with after that interception, they moved right down the field uncontested, and it was all downhill from there.
I think Elmwood gained 300 yards in the second half, and most of those were, like we said, about a 6-8 minute span. I mean, they just blew Sonora's doors off on defense. They couldn't do anything, nothing at all.
That first drive going down the field, that they, Sonora moved down there, couldn't get the ball in the end zone, which was, disheartening. I mean, you're from on the half-yard line and you can't pound the ball in. That's Sonora football, right? You should be able to get the ball in the end zone, and maybe a different play call there changes things. I don't know. But anyways, you got 3 points on the board. You come away with points, and you took a bunch of time off the clock, which is what you wanted to do as Sonora. But with a powerful offense like that, with Wickard back there at quarterback, and those guys just right down the field. And I thought with the Oliver kid, wasn't it, that was kind of hurt one Oliver kid,
Micah.
got hurt.
And, Mason Oliver ended
got
up
hurt late,
getting a
yes.
shoulder
Yep.
hurt late in that game.
I thought that would help us a little bit, taking him off the field.
Yep.
He came out in crutches in the second half, and I thought, well, that might help us out a little bit. But man, they just went right down the field, and Tenor did nothing to stop him the first drive, then we threw the interception. It was second or third play. It wasn't. I mean, we turned the ball over.
And I think Tenor had 3 turnovers in 4 drives, and I think they probably had 3 turnovers in about 6 plays. It was just I don't know if it was a bad read there or a bad move. I'm not sure what happened on the first one, but he kind of threw that into the wrong spot, and I think he was trying to hit Gus Weiler, and Gus Weiler wasn't there, and they just picked that one off and took it. And then the second one was, again, I think that was another bad read. Tried to force it in when probably shouldn't have, and turned the ball right back over to him, and they right down the field. Yep. As much as we saw Graziani grow in the last month, his inexperience showed a little bit there in the second half. So something to grow on for him.
But I think some play calling there, we could have made things a little easier for him.
Yep.
Doing the little quick outs, get them getting them more comfortable and trying to force the ball down the field so much. But hey, hats off to Elmwood, like Logan said. There's a reason they're the number 2 seed, and but man, I tell you what, they were powerful in the second half. The first half, and we talk about, Tenor's defensive line is going to have to get pressure, make Wickard throw on the run, and we did not do that.
Not
at all. I mean, we didn't even put pressure on him. I mean, maybe a couple times, but I think his dad came up and talked to us and said, "Oh yeah, they were putting pressure on him." Like, kind of looked at each other like, "Yeah, I don't think you were seeing the same thing we were seeing."
I guess that just shows why Elmwood's, about the number 2 seed. You stop their passing game, they still have their running game. You stop their running game, they passing. They just have such a 50-50 balance. I mean,
they're very multiple.
Right.
On
even
offense.
Wickard, as we saw, could. I mean, when needed, he can tuck the ball and run. So, probably the most explosive offense that we've seen in several years. I would say
that's something too. They have a lot of depth because when Mason Oliver ended up going out late in, I believe, like the third quarter with a shoulder injury, Alex Arnold ended up stepping up, and to find out from Wickard's dad is he actually started playing running back just a couple weeks ago when Mason was dealing with some shoulder injuries, and you would have thought he was playing all year long because the way he ran the ball, and he ran hard, and he just trucked people over, and it was very impressive to see him play. But again, we talked that Elmwood's a 3-headed monster on offense. You got quarterback Hayden Wickard, running back Mason Oliver, wide receiver Mason Mossbarger, and it's just crazy to see all the threats they have on the offensive side of the ball. But defensively, defensive line played very well. That's something we talked and commented a lot on the game, is that Elmwood's defensive line and Tenor's for the first half, I mean, there was no rushing attack. You take away Mason Oliver's 40-yard run, and it was pretty much even. I mean, they weren't getting anything on the ground, and both teams, they flowed down the line so well. But that's one thing, too, is that second half, it was just so unique to see the two teams go in 2 different directions because Elmwood came out, they went with the hurry up, and it just showed that Tenora's defensive line, they were gassed. I'm not going to lie. You saw guys out there, because there's no one on Tenora's schedule that will run an offense like that. And for Elmwood's staff to realize that and use tempo as another tool to control the game, and that's, again, you see that in a lot of college football games, is the coaches will control the tempo, and that's a big factor when deciding the outcome of games. But another thing, too, I really thought I was kind of questioning when Tenor came out in the second half. They really ran Dominic Graziani quite a bit, which we haven't seen all year. And we go down the field, and it's like, I wish they would have just QB snuck him at the 1 or 2 yard line and punched that in. But we kind of got tied up with Graziani running the ball, and late in the game, he started throwing up some deep passes, which really, for a Tenor offense, that's not where our comfortable zone is.
I didn't understand. Graziani ran the ball a lot and then stopped. Kind of the same thing we saw with Cole Andrews the week before. We ran him, and then didn't run him anymore. And then we kind of did the same thing with Graziani. Ran, and then I don't know that he run it very much after that. But Elmwood did a great job defensively, like you said, Logan. Defensive line was stout. Their linebackers were filling the holes super well. And they did what they had to do, was let's force Tenor to throw the ball. And it worked out in their favor. We made some mistakes. Young quarterback made some mistakes, and he'll grow from that. He'll learn and then that'll be different. But yeah, Elmwood just did a fantastic job second half, making some adjustments, shutting down Sonora's running game even more than what they did in the first half, and forced Sonora to throw the ball. Do something that they really weren't comfortable doing.
Yep. And kudos to Kevin Wolf over there, the AD at Elmwood. Fantastic job. Nice post-game fireworks over there.
I was going to say, the fireworks.
They were first class over there. So thanks to Kevin and his staff over at Elmwood. Very, very nice setup and very friendly staff. And concession stands were to die for, apparently.
The ribeye sandwich. If you're ever at an Elmwood game, get the ribeye sandwich because that was delicious. So.
Yeah, they say they're famous. This famous ribeye sandwich, they're good, man. It was good. It's actually a ribeye. I mean, it's actually a thin ribeye steak on a bun.
Yep,
that was very good. Let's move on to the next game here. Defiance at Mansfield Senior. Mansfield Senior ended up winning that game 16-0. Like Tony said, we thought Defiance was up at halftime, according to ScoreStream, but you know how ScoreStream can be sometimes. So, but anyways, Defiance was held to just 17 rushing yards, and they gave up 6 sacks. And I think that just shows that the trenches were definitely won by Mansfield Senior the entire game. That definitely made it tough to get any kind of offense going. I mean, and that's been Defiance's bread and butter all year long is the rushing game, and they just couldn't get it established. And Defiance had some chances in the red zone to score some points. And, in the second quarter, Defiance had a 4th and goal, and they were stuffed on the 1 yard line, and that's just a killer. If you can't punch it in on the 1 yard line, and you've got a dominating rushing game and good running backs, and you just can't get it in, that's a tough break. Also looking, quarterback Brez Zippel from Defiance, he also hit Anthony Wilder for a huge gain of 76, but was pushed out at the 2 yard line. So it's like you almost have a touchdown, a huge gain, and they ended up empty-handed down in the red zone on that possession too. So it just goes to show Defiance could not catch a break that game. And Defiance also had 11 penalties for 110 yards compared to Mansfield's 3 penalties for 20 yards. And I've heard from some fans that The referees were pretty one-sided, and I mean, if you look at it, penalty-wise, Defiance had 11 for 110, and Mansfield had 3 for 20. So that's I'd be pretty frustrated too if I was a Defiance fan. So, what are you guys' thoughts on this one?
I also heard from a couple of people there too. Said on that goal line stand by Mansfield, when Castillo was close to the goal line, they said that one of the referees partially put his arms up for a Defiant touchdown.
No kidding.
Yes, so that's whether he did or not, I guess. I mean, I wasn't there. I don't know. I'm just hearing secondhand, but they said they could have swore that he partially started to go up for a touchdown and then was kind of brought him down. So,
yeah, that's that would be really hard to take, 11 penalties. Not saying that they weren't penalties, but when you start seeing stuff that lopsided, either A, and I think we touched on this a little bit, Logan. Maybe it was off air, but staying disciplined.
Yeah.
In that game, I think we talked about it. Alex, I don't think it was on air, but being disciplined in that game and maybe Defiance kind of lost their cool. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but Defiance was in the game 14-0 at halftime, and then it shows that they Zippel fumbled the ball through the end zone and for a safety in the third. You're down 14-0, and then you fumble the ball, and they get a safety, and obviously then they get the ball back after that.
Yep.
That's kind of a mood killer a little bit for Defiance going down to giving up the safety then. But man, oh man, just saw Zippel here. They did a good job of holding Castile. He only had 47 yards rushing, but I seen Zippel had minus 51, so they must have been all over him.
That's all the sacks there too. So I mean, those added up pretty quick. And something too, looking at the final stat, Defiance had only 6 first downs to Mansfield's 16. So just kind of goes to show how difficult of a time Defiance had just moving the ball downfield that game.
Yeah, well, Defiance only had 17 yards total rushing as a team, so that's after
coming off 300 the previous week, I believe. So
I was gonna say Castile had 200 and some the week before.
A career performance, and to come out this week, and that's a tough break. But I think it just goes to show where Defiance needs a little bit of work next year, and maybe working on down in the trenches a little bit more. But nonetheless, you can't take away from Defiance, because what a year for them and for the program to turn things around. All the losing seasons they've had for years on end. They make the playoffs for the first time in a long time. They get their first playoff win since I believe 2003. What a year, and I can't credit Coach Cooper, his staff, and all those players enough, because how awesome is it to see that Defiance is back on the map for football.
Yep. Yeah, if you would have told them at the end of last year they would be 7-5 and make it to the second round of the playoffs, and actually, they weren't dominated by Mansfield by any means. No. I mean, I'm sure that Coach Cooper and the staff probably would have settled for a 7-5 and a second round exit, but it's disappointing for Defiance. But you have a lot to build on after this season.
Oh,
I mean,
for sure.
You piqued the interest in the community, the school, the student body. I mean, Bulldog pride is back at Defiance High School for next year. I'm sure the boys are ready to hit the weight room start next week.
Oh, I totally agree. And that's something, too, is you look at their team. They're a young team. I believe they bring back most of their offensive and defensive lines. Their quarterback, Brez, was a sophomore this year. We bring back Rogan Castillo, who really developed this year and done a nice job at just being that bulldozer running back. Again, they've got the Anthony Wilder kid, who's just a versatile athlete as well. So Defiance is definitely has big things to look forward to next season. So
12 seniors are going to exit. So, I mean, it's not like they're not losing anybody, but according to the paper here, 12 seniors going to be exiting this year. So hopefully they can fill the gaps, and hopefully Defiance can do it again next year.
Let's look at the next game here. Delphus Jefferson at Antwerp, and this one was a close one and just about made Antwerp drop out of the playoffs. But Antwerp ended up winning that one 35-34. And I just want to start off and say that the win Delphus Jefferson had against Ayersville was definitely not a fluke, like I said on the last podcast. I give Delphus Jefferson a lot of credit because for them to come out again this week and play like they did, and they played unbelievable, and they should have honestly beaten Antwerp in this game because Antwerp was on the ropes in the fourth quarter. They had 3 turnovers, and the only reason Antwerp ended up winning is because they were able to force a fumble and recover it, and they ended up going down the field and scored with 49 seconds left in the game, and they decided to go for the 2-point conversion and the win, and they ended up getting it and winning 35-33 or 34. Sorry. But anyways, what are you guys' thoughts on this game?
I actually went back and rewatched this one when I was doing my post game write up on Friday night. I feel so horrible for. I mean, trust me, we're a big fan of Coach Hale and Antwerp and everybody. Somebody must have gave Coach Hale a 4-leaf clover before the game because there is no reason that Antwerp should have won this game if you go back and look at the final 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Delphus Jefferson, the kid was going for just second and third effort, it looked like. His first down, 1st and 10, there was about 2:20 to go, I believe. Antwerp had no timeouts. The first down play was at the Delphus Jefferson 45. The kid broke through the first line, got to the second line. Somebody grabbed him from behind. It might have been Reed Leachty, actually. And I don't know if Reed poked the ball out or the running back just lost it. But he was trying to just get that extra yard or two. You preach to somebody. But here in this instance, it looked like it cost them. So they fumbled it on first down with no timeouts left for Antwerp, with just a shade over 2 minutes to go. And Antwerp capitalized, came down, Ultimus drove them down, scored, went for 2. And from what I understood and read was Coach Hale called a play, and then Ultimus is like, well, let's go with something different. As a quarterback keeper, he kind of snuck his way through, and that's what happened. So the original play that Coach Hale called, Ultimus is like, hey, let's go with this. So Coach Hale, kudos to him, trusted his quarterback to actually put the season on the line, the best season in the history of Antwerp school, trusted his junior quarterback.
Wow. That's a lot of faith right there.
2-point conversion, correct. So, but yeah, what an exciting game. I think My Sports Live still has it up, but yeah, I couldn't take my eyes off of it. I was like, this is a great game. I'm trying to write.
Yeah, you would have thought with Antwerp, Ultimus threw 2 picks, and they had a fumble also, and losing the turnover battle, and then just the sky opened up and let one happen for them late in the game like that. It's just.
Well, he probably thought the second interception was with just over 3 minutes to go, and Antwerp burned their last timeouts on the first series for Delphus Jefferson. They got a first down, which was just, like I said, just over 2 minutes to go. Oh. And, they were just literally just had to
the game's
fall on
over.
the ball. Honestly, if they had to do all over again, you just would have kind of knelt down and probably would have punted it away with about 20, 25 seconds to go. But, just heartbreaking loss for Delphos. But then again, on the flip side, you teach your kids, don't ever give up. Always play to the final whistle. And right here is a perfect example.
Yeah, you're going after the ball.
Don't ever give up.
The Delphos Jefferson, that's what's going to be happening. They're going to be tugging at the ball, doing everything they can to get that ball out of there. That's the only way the only hope they've got, right, is to pull the ball loose. And apparently caught him with the ball a little bit away from his body or something and was able to get it out of there. So, hey, like you said, Logan, Delphos Jefferson obviously wasn't a fluke because they should be going to round 3 and but not only did Antwerp score then after the turnover, but then they were able to convert that 2-point conversion, which we did see in college football came up big, LSU and Alabama.
Yes, indeed.
So you just got to decide to go for 2. Which I don't know that Antwerp had. Do they have a kicker? I don't know that they ever kicked it against us. So could they have gone for the tie? I don't know if they have a field goal kicker that.
I don't know.
I'm not sure to tell you the truth.
I don't know. So, it's like one of those things that was it really an option to go for 2? It was basically just like, hey, we don't have a kicker. We're going, this is what we've done all year. A little different with Antwerp. If if you're not used to going for 2, then you really got to come up with something. But if you've gone for 2 every time you've scored, Lord knows Antwerp has scored a bunch this year. So
that's something for sure. But I thought it was impressive that Delphos Jefferson was able to get 2 interceptions on Carson Altimus. Yep. He only had 1 interception all year going into that game, and they were able to pull out 2. So, credit goes to their defense. And like Keith was saying, there was no reason that Antwerp had any business to win this game the way it was ending in the fourth quarter.
Right.
Yeah, and then never would have thought Carson Altimus would have had more rushing yards than passing yards in the game. But
yeah, I thought that was crazy too. You're looking at that. He finished 15 carries, 166 rushing yards. He had 3 rushing touchdowns, but then passing, he was 22 of 33, 148 passing yards. He had 1 passing touchdown and those 2 interceptions. So not the typical performance we see out of him, but we definitely know he's a dual threat quarterback and one of the best in Northwest Ohio.
Yep.
Just briefly looking at some of the scoring for Antwerp, I don't ever see that they actually try to kick it. Like I said, I could be wrong, but everything I see is 2-point conversion try or whatnot. So
I also wanted to give a shout out to running back and linebacker Reed Leachty from Antwerp, and he continues to have these great performances in the playoffs, especially in crunch time. He had 10 carries again this week, 128 rushing yards. He had a rushing touchdown. He also had 7 receptions for 30 receiving yards, and he also led the defense with 16 tackles. And he's just someone, too, we kind of talked about him possibility for Northwest Ohio Sports Defensive Player of the Year, and he continues to perform week after week.
And the thing about that is, Logan, I think Reed was hurt on that fumble recovery, so the Archers actually didn't have him for that final drive.
Really? Wow.
So
that's a huge loss.
I think he hurt his shoulder.
Who was that?
Reed Leachty was not. I don't believe he was on the field for that final drive. Wow. So that's like one.
Talk about a huge loss.
Right, yes.
Wow.
I don't know. I'm assuming he's going to be healthy enough to play this Friday. I haven't heard otherwise, but yeah,
arm would have to be falling off. I would think to keep you at this point,
but to have your game-winning drive be without Reed Leachty, yikes! It's not somewhere I would want to be as a coach.
Yeah. A heck of a win by the Archers. So yeah,
and they've got a big one this week. Yep. So it's good to see a GMC team continue to represent and continue to win those ball games. And like you said, I don't know, maybe someone's got to give Coach Hale another 4-leaf clover this week.
I actually saw an interview with Coach Hale. I think it was last week. Somebody interviewed him during practice. He has a Cleveland Indians T-shirt on, and I thought he had a pirate hat on. I didn't know any better. So I'm sitting there cracking up, listening to Coach Hale doing an interview with his pirate hat on with the Cleveland Indian shirt.
It's funny.
Let's look at the next game here. Patrick Henry at Crestview Ashland. Crestview Ashland ended up winning this game 31-22, and believe it or not, Patrick Henry had a chance in the fourth quarter with the ball on offense and in the red zone to win the game, but Ashland Crestview was able to get a 99-yard interception return for a touchdown, and what a backbreaker on that one. But Patrick Henry's passing attack just wasn't enough to get past Crestview. You look, Nash Meyer had another good performance. He was 25 of 34, 74% completion percentage. He had 339 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 2 rushing touchdowns, and he only had 1 interception, and that was that pick 6, which was costly. Again, wide receiver Landon Johnson, 11 receptions, 170 receiving yards. Jeff Camp had 7 receptions, and Aiden Behrman had a 39-yard touchdown reception. So what are your guys' thoughts on this Patrick Henry and Crestview Ashland game?
And Nash Meyer threw the ball 34 times. I mean, it sounded like he was having a great game. One bad pass, you know what I mean? Just one pass got away from him, and who knows what happened on that pass? But dang, it's unfortunate for Patrick Henry because they would have taken the lead. It looks like with a touchdown there. So.
Yeah, with 5:17 remaining in the fourth quarter, and who knows? I mean, if they don't throw that and they punch it in,
the momentum's going to swing instantly. To Patrick Henry's side. The crowd's going to be all over it. So,
yeah, I mean, heartbreaking loss for the Patriots, and Nash Meyer. I mean, if you're Patrick Henry, you're not going to be in that position without him. I mean, it's unfortunate that it happened to him, but hey, look at everything he's done this year for the program and this game, and it's unfortunate, but hey, heads up, Patrick Henry had a heck of a season.
Yeah, when you have 34 attempts, and we've seen games raising the 40, 40 attempts or more, and you're going to throw an interception. Yep. It's going to happen when you throw it that much. You look at the pros; they throw interceptions all the time. Yep. You just don't want it to be in this way. You put up 339 passing yards, 74% completion rate, and one pass is the difference maker in the game.
Yep.
It's so unfortunate, but like you said, Keith, congratulations to Nash Meyer and the way he's performed this year. Congratulations to Patrick Henry in general, because they've had a pretty great season. Especially the second half of the season. So
and they were one of the hottest teams here
going into playoffs.
Going into playoffs too. They got a big win against Archbold. They rattled off a win against Ottawa Hills, and they hung with the Crestview Ashland. That was they had no losses on the year. So I mean, it just shows that Patrick Henry can hang with the best of them. And again, next year you bring back Nash Meyer and Landon Johnson. That probably honestly will be the best quarterback wide receiver hookup in the NWAL. So that's got to be exciting. And they bring back a lot of other good athletes as well. So, but nonetheless, congratulations, Coach I. Again, we interviewed him a couple of weeks ago. Great coach. But it was impressive to see Patrick Henry put on a little run here to end the season.
Yeah, I mean, kudos. I mean, like I said, they had a great game going. Nash Meyer had a fantastic game going, and one errant pass gets away, and it ends up being the difference in the game. Not to say that that's the only thing that's not to say that's what won or lost the game, but it just happened to be at that moment. It's kind of heartbreaking, but like you said, great job to those guys, and we talked about those guys kind of being the little blue collar team plugging along all season. See what they'll do next year.
Next game here, looking at Columbus Grove at Northwestern, and Columbus Grove ended up winning this one 34-22. What an exciting game to play in. You take away the first quarter where Columbus Grove jumped out to a 14-3 lead, and Grove and Northwestern were matched in terms of scoring for the rest of the game, which was interesting to see. But Columbus Grove just continues to be so dominant in the run game week after week, and though they only rushed for 197 yards, they ran only 49 plays to Northwestern's 73 for the game, which that was kind of interesting to see how many more plays and how much longer Northwestern had the ball on offense. But running back from Columbus Grove, Trenton Barraza continues to be a staple in the offense, along with A.J. Schaefer, who is just the plunge guy, because you look at his stats, and he's always punching the ball in down in the red zone right on the goal line. So he's someone you can rely on to get that tough 1 to 2 yards.
Yeah,
so
when you got 3 touchdowns and 25 total yards, you're not running it very far.
Yeah, and I believe he actually has the same amount of rushing touchdowns as Barraza, who's their main running back, and they both have, I think, 12 rushing touchdowns on the year. So, but anyhow, what a game from Columbus Grove. But what are your guys' thoughts on this one here?
I just, it's some of you look at the stats and some of the, like you said, Logan, the total plays. You look at how does Northwestern run 73? I mean, not double, but
a significant amount more.
I mean, a quarter more plays than what they were, and then. And Columbus Grove comes away with you think they were running 73 offensive plays. They had to have had time of possession. It doesn't show here that I see, but time of possession had to be hugely Northwestern's favor. And but Columbus Grove must have, like you said, come up to a 14-3 lead and then just didn't back off that and just started exchanging blows from that point on.
Yeah, what a heck of a game to watch, really. I mean, 73 offensive plays. That's wow.
I mean, you look. I'm just looking through the stats. They're so evenly matched,
right?
Except for the total plays. I mean, fumbles. They both had 2. They both lost 1. They both punted twice.
Both had an interception.
Yeah, the punt average 35 to 30. I mean, just all the way down through there, it's so evenly matched.
Even penalties and penalty yards are pretty similar too. So,
yeah, just kind of crazy. Northwestern, they had 352 yards. Columbus Grove's 252, but it's just, you look at the score and you're like, how do they get away with a 34-22 victory?
Yeah, and I think Columbus Grove going into this week, I know we'll get into it later, but I think they got to establish the passing game a little bit more because, you look at this one, Brent Renner, quarterback for Columbus Grove, he was 6 of 9 for 50 passing yards, but he threw 1 interception. That's going to be something key for a lot of teams late in the playoffs is quarterback play. And even though your team may not throw the ball quite a bit, it's crucial to keep the ball safe and not commit any turnovers. So going forward, I'm excited to see Columbus Grove this week. I think Coach Schaefer over there, he's continued to build almost a mini dynasty. Yep. Columbus Grove is always making the playoffs, and they're always making deep runs.
Right.
So
a couple of years ago, they had Blake Reynolds and Colin Metzger making big waves throughout the playoffs.
So keep your eye on Columbus Grove. They're one that can definitely make a run in Division 6. So let's move on to the next game here. Van Wert at Sandusky Perkins. Van Wert won this one, and you guys are not going to believe how it was won. And I'll insert the video clip here for the podcast. But they won 29-22, and they ended up winning. Sandusky Perkins was lined up for a 22-yard field goal attempt with time running down in the fourth quarter. And Van Wert blocks this thing and returns it 78 yards to the end zone for a touchdown that ended up giving them the win. And we were talking kind of before the podcast. We saw that earlier in the year where Van Wert actually lost a game very similarly, where it was the end of the game. It was 4th down. They were trying to punt the ball away, and they had a ball blocked by Wapakoneta, who returned it for a touchdown. So it's amazing to see how the tides have turned for the Cougars. So, again, special teams is very crucial, and it's something we've seen year long. So what are your guys' thoughts on this one here?
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, we watched this on the way back from our game. Logan showed us, and it was just like, the football gods are smiling down now on Van Wert. Like they giveth and they taketh away, or reversed in this case, I guess. Yep. They gave it away and they giveth now.
Yep. Yeah, it was quite the ending to watch. But we talked about special teams and how big they are, and we didn't talk about it much. But the Tenora game, the special teams game up there, the first points of the game
the game
was a blocked punt out the back of the end zone for a safety. So that's 2 games this week that out of the 5 or 6 that we covered that started off and had special teams as a big factor in it. So
yep, that's what I was going to say, AJ. I was going to say 2 words. We've been saying it all year: special teams. Just did it again, and amazing. And just to win a ball game with that kind of excitement, it's. Sometimes that's all a team needs, is a big play like that helps them squeak out the one win that they needed throughout the run. And then they end up taking out, winning the state title. And it's just, it's crazy. Yeah,
it's not like special teams is something that you practice a lot. It's usually the last thing you throw last 10 minutes of practice. Hey, let's go work on some special team stuff. So, your Van Wert, just give 110% here and see what happens. If they make it, they make it. If not, we're not going to go down, without giving 110%, especially the seniors that were on the field at that time. That could have been their last play, really. And then just like that, snap of a finger, you're looking, there goes the return for a touchdown. It's just...
Yeah, there was 2 safeties in the game. I'm going through the scoring summary. There was 2 safeties. Perkins had a safety in the first quarter, and then in the fourth quarter, Van Wert had a safety. That safety tied the game at 15, and then Perkins come back and scored, made it 15-21. Would be 22. I think the score's wrong. Oh no, it said kick no good. So 15-21.
And Perkins actually, they outgained in terms of total yardage. Van Wert 449 to 300. And looking at first downs, Sandusky had 22 to Van Wert's 11. And then you look at third down efficiency. Again, that's something we talk about too. Is Van Wert was 2 of 10 for 20%. Sandusky Perkins was 7 of 15 for 47%, which that's very impressive on third down.
So I'm looking at this, Logan. This is on Huddle, right?
Yeah.
Stats. Yep. So Van Wert had the lead. 23-21, according to what this says, because Aiden, it says here the score was tied 15-15 in the fourth, and then Perkins
Oh,
took
you
the
know
lead.
what? Yeah.
Took the lead 21-15.
So that must have sealed the game for them because they were trying to kick a game-winning field goal.
Yeah, they were trying to kick a field
That
goal
makes
to win it.
sense.
So that makes a little more sense than trying to kick the ball because we were talking about that. We thought Van Wert was down. We were talking about the other day, and if Van Wert was down, why were they even trying to kick the field goal? But if they were down by 2, then that kind of explains it a little bit better. But yeah, still, special teams, man, just if they don't block it, maybe he makes that kick. Who knows? And
I was doing some looking. Actually, Sandusky Perkins kicker is like a 3-star recruit.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know that. I did a little bit of looking. So I mean, he's a quality kicker. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well. But you look again, Aiden Pratt for Van Wert, quarterback, has been dominant year long. He was 18 of 24, 257 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. He had no interceptions. And then rushing wise, he had a rushing touchdown too. So I don't know. Like I say, that kid, he I wouldn't surprise me if he starts getting some Division I offers here shortly because he is a player.
He throws the ball with no effort whatsoever. I mean, he throws the ball 40 yards and has really just flick of the wrist. Yes.
Like I could definitely see him honestly going to like a MAC school or something like that because he is a true talent and he shows off his athleticism week after week. And even looking, he's got such a good receiving core as well. So it's good to see a quarterback like that put into such a good position and offense. And Maddox Crutchfield, 6 receptions, 70 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. He's been one of actually he was a first-team WBL tight end as well. So I'm just very impressed by Aiden Pratt and the way he continues to play the quarterback position.
I mean, how would you compare him to Matty Mock? What do you think? He went to Missouri, guys.
Yeah, but with Matty Mock, he was more of a dual threat too. I feel like because I got to watch him actually play and play against Defiance in high school. We went to a couple of his games, but he is one player Pratt is one player I'd really like to see in person. I don't know if he is like a Power 5 conference guy, but still, I mean, he deserves some looks because I feel like oftentimes a lot of guys in Northwest Ohio get kind of overshadowed. But
I mean, WBL guy, the same as Mock was, so that's why I was just kind of curious.
Yeah.
And he's throwing up the same kind of stats that I thought that Mock was throwing up. And anyway, food for thought.
Yeah. I think too. I think he's actually offered by Ashland as of right now. He went on a visit there, but it seriously wouldn't surprise me. He gets some big time looks here shortly.
Yeah, well needed too. I mean, he should honestly. Yeah. So,
all right, let's look at the last game here. It's Holgate at Toledo Christian. Well, actually, they played at Bowling Green High School, so it was Holgate versus Toledo Christian, and Holgate ended up winning this one, and they won the first Northern 8 playoff tournament, and were Northern 8 champions. Holgate won 34-27. And just congratulations to Holgate first off because what a job because all of us here did not have Holgate picked to win that game. Toledo Christian was dominant in that conference all year long. But Holgate was down 14-21 at halftime, and they worked their way back for a win. They had a fumble recovered that was snapped over Toledo Christian's quarterback's head, which they ended up returning for a touchdown and gave them a huge score in the second quarter of the game. But nonetheless, they ended up playing very well in the second half and ended up securing a win. And it was good to see good old Holgate pull that one out. So what are your guys' thoughts on this one?
We all had Toledo Christian picked there just because go back to the regular season, Toledo Christian won 43-6. So we kind of all assumed we talk about it's hard to win a second time against the same team, but when it's a game that's that big of a difference, it's like, how much is that going to matter? But once again, the team that lost the first face-off ends up coming back and winning.
Yeah, there's like 2 ways to go with that. Like, I guess you go into the week like, hey, we're going to prove ourselves, and you kind of go into your practice week a little anger behind it, like we got embarrassed last time around, or you go into your practice week, man, we just got smoked by these guys a month ago. How are we going to do we have a chance? That's, your coaching staff just building you up throughout the week and, hey, we got a chance, and here's what happens.
Yeah, I tell you what, guys, I know that firsthand as a varsity softball coach because we played out Seago early in the season last year and got smoked 10-0. And their pitcher struck out 15 people in 5 innings. Yeah. So, that didn't fare well for us. And so then we had to go back and face them in districts. That's a big thing. And you just try to tell the kids, hey, focus on what you got to get done. And softball, just like, hey, got to find a way to put the bat on the ball. I don't care if you got a bunt. Just find a way to put the bat out there and stay off. Try to be disciplined and that kind of thing. And we were able to pull out the victory on Seago the second time we played them. So happens a lot, I guess. You start thinking back about it, but yeah, Holgate being able to hang in there and getting down right away, 2 scores, and being able to stay in there, and then then they got the snap over the head, like you said, Logan, and take that back for a touchdown, and kind of build a little bit of momentum going into halftime, and and then come out and it was basically dominated the second half, kind of like Elmwood did against Sonora.
A common theme we've seen in a lot of these games is that second matchup between the teams. It seems like it always evens out, because we had Delphus Jefferson and Ayersville, Holgate, Toledo Christian. There's multiple other teams, but we talk about it. It is so tough to beat a team twice in one season, because it's like I said before, I don't know if it's some kind of equilibrium, but it is just so tough. The teams kind of know each other already, and that's something too. Toledo Christian beat Holgate earlier in the year, and it wasn't even close. So it just goes to show how difficult it truly is to complete the undefeated matchup.
Right, and which, similar to Antwerp a few years ago, Holgate's been through just the ringer the last 4 or 5 years. Dropped football, left the GMC. Last year, I think they only played a game or two. Yeah,
before they ended up had too many injuries. They couldn't even field the team.
So they had to drop football. So Coach Colton Wagner, kudos to him and his staff and the kids at Holgate. To come back this year with a lot of fight and take the championship in the 8-man. So
yeah, that's awesome.
All right, we're going to go ahead. We're going to take a break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. 3Chord is a family-owned and operated business who offers the highest quality embroidery, screen printing, sign and promotional items to customers in Northwest Ohio at competitive prices. Locations in Archbold, Napoleon, and Bowling Green. Check them out at 3chord.com. That's THREECORD.com. For any of your auto body or collision needs, be sure to check out Bat & Stevens Body Shop, voted the #1 body shop in Northwest Ohio by Crescent News readers. Give them a call today at 419-497-3111 to schedule your free estimate. Check out Tenora Rams Live. Live events broadcast on YouTube, and post-game results, articles, schedules, and more can all be found on tenorarams.com. Feel free to look up their Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram pages as well. Jimenez Basketball Academy strives to create an atmosphere to cultivate basketball fundamentals in Northwest Ohio youth athletes, offering one-on-one sessions, group sessions, speed and agility training, and much more. Located in Pettisville, Ohio, call Coach Jesse today at 419-551-8105. Back on the NWO Sports Podcast, Logan Bailey here with Keith Brown and Tony and AJ Fairchild. We're going to go ahead and look at some Round 3 playoff matchups. We'll start here first with the Division 5 Region 18, looking at #1 seed Liberty Center, who's 12-0, facing #4 seed Coldwater, who's 11-1. That will be Friday at Lima Spartan Stadium. Looking at this matchup here, guys, I think it's definitely going to be a good one. And a couple interesting things. I did some searching for Coldwater, and I couldn't believe some of the adversity this team has faced this season. And you look, this is Coach Otten, Chip Otten, head coach for Coldwater, his 13th season as head coach. He's got 5 state championships already, which is very impressive. Most coaches don't even get one. No. But you look, and what an off season for Coach Chip Otten. He actually retired last year, school year, as a teacher in March, and had to make sure everything was within regulation, because Ohio has certain stipulations where retiring teacher has to have a certain pause away from school duties in order to be put back on payroll, blah, yada, yada, yada. But anyways, after he retired, he ended up having a knee replacement surgery. So that was just one thing he had going on. But also, he went on vacation in June to South Carolina and ended up in the emergency room. Come to find out, he needed open heart surgery. So Coach Otten had a knee replacement surgery and open heart surgery during this offseason, which is crazy that your head coach is having all that. So he's been through a lot. And then you look, their star quarterback, Marcel Blasingame, broke his leg 4 weeks ago. He ended up getting a rod and 8 screws, I believe, in his leg. The doctor cleared him, but I don't think anyone really expected him to play in the game last week. This dude comes out, and he ends up starting at halftime against the Huron game and helped lead Coldwater to a win. And I mean, he's a stud athlete. He had 1,000+ yards passing and throwing before he got injured, and that was only 3/4 of the way through the season. But what a season and roller coaster ride for Coldwater to this point. But I just wanted to throw that out there. I thought that was very interesting to see what that team's had to deal with. But what are your thoughts on this one here, this matchup?
Well, you say Coach Otten had that open heart surgery in the offseason, but man, June is barely off season. I mean,
Right.
You're starting your summer workouts and stuff like that. You're really starting into the practice routine. Maybe not into that full on practices, but you're getting into that routine in June. So that's quite the wrench to throw in the works there.
That's crazy. I mean, to see that he's coached for 13 seasons and has 5 state championships. I mean, we all know that for some, I don't know how they do it in the MAC. I honestly, I'd like to go down there and coach myself for a few years just to find out what in the world they do down there.
It's got to be something in the water.
Yeah, it's got to be that H2O, man. Something that's maybe they have some of that glacier water that they had in the movie Waterboy.
Yeah. Or it might be some of that water from Space Jam, the special Michael Jordan water.
Could be. I don't know. But I tell you what, you just watch the MAC schools and it just seems like year after year, Coldwater, Marion local. I mean, they're just there. And it's crazy. I'd love to know how they do it. Not only to know how they win, but how do they get the kids involved? I mean, because those schools have tons of kids every year.
Mm-hmm. You actually stole one of my points. It's kind of not really on the field, but off the field. These two schools are going to have so many kids on the sidelines.
Yeah.
I bet you they're each going to probably dress 80.
Well, dude, it's going to look like a college game, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you're going to have 70
kids from 30 to 30 just everywhere.
Yep. You're going to have 70 kids. It's going to look like an Ohio State home game. You're going to dress everybody.
Yeah.
Well, and crowd, too. I mean, it will legitimately be like a college game because I guarantee the Lima Spartan Stadium will be packed because both football programs will have a lot of fans that travel. So
yeah, that's you asked about games to go see. That's a game I'd like to go see, but I bet you can play heck getting tickets to that game. I don't know. I mean, I've driven down before to watch games down there when you guys were playing. You got to be there early in the parkway across the 8-way. And
I think going into this game, I think this game is going to be Liberty Center's biggest test of the year. You know, this is a program of Coldwater that I think matches up very similarly to a Liberty Center team because you know that Coach Otten, he preaches the physicality like Coach Mohler does at Liberty Center, and these are two prideful programs that are going to match up as well. So, I mean, Coldwater has been battle tested. You know, they play in the MAC, probably the best. Honestly, you could probably argue the best small school conference, probably in the country. Honestly,
right?
But
I would rival some of the ones in Texas. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you look, and Coldwater's only loss in the year is to Marion Local, who Marion Local could honestly probably win the state in Division 5, 4, possibly 3.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
So they end up losing that one 0-35. But other than that, they pretty much handled business with everyone else. And I tell you what, this is definitely a game I want to watch. So.
Yeah. Coach Otten, like I said, 13 seasons, 5 state championships. He's been through there. He's done it. I kind of talk about Tom Brady a lot, because I just love that guy. He's nothing phases the guy. I mean, they call him the GOAT for a reason, and just he's been there, he's seen it, he's done it. You're not going to throw anything at him, and I don't think in a game that you're going to confuse him. And with Coach Otten, I think you're going to have the same thing. He's been there, he's done it. 5 state championships, so he's been there. He's been through the ringer a couple times, I'm sure. But
so that's not even counting how many deep playoff runs he's had. That's just championships. How many times has he been to the state semifinals or even the state finals and losing?
Yeah, I don't know. So it just Coldwater's a good team, and that's going to be a battle. I tell you what, that'll be a fun game to watch. As people going down for that one, that'll be fun.
I guess just personal opinion, when you heard about this game, you didn't hear the full story about the quarterback blasting game until I didn't hear about it until Logan sent that little
like an article.
little
Article,
article
yeah.
Saturday, and it's like, wow, this is absolutely amazing. He's got a rod in his leg with 8 screws still, and he came out in the second half to start. I mean,
I assume he's going to come out this week and start.
I would guess, but just the rise in emotion from the crowd and your teammates and everybody as you walk on that field was probably just chilling for everybody. I mean, honestly,
Well, I mean,
it's hard to believe.
I broke my arm my senior year in the 4th game of the season, and I got 2 plates. I broke both bones of my arm, and I got 2 plates and 13 screws in my arm right now. The first thing I asked the doctor was, when can I play? And he's like, well, we'll talk about that. You still got stitches in, but and he told me, you get 80% mobility back in your hand, I'll clear you. And I had a removable cast, and I'm in the shower literally just pushing on my hand, trying to get my hand to move. And when I went back in and got my stitches out 2 weeks later, I mean, I can move my hand like this. It's no problem. He's like, I'm not going to clear you yet. And but I ended up playing in the 8th game of the season.
Yeah.
I place kicked, and then in the 9th and 10th game of the seasons I played. Now, that whole story, that's not a leg. That's entirely. I mean, you can put pad on your arm and run out there with this big club of just run. I mean, Bryce did it last year, right? He had a club on his arm.
Yep.
So your arm's a little different than running around with a broke leg that you just broke 4 weeks ago.
And playing a position like quarterback too. I mean, where you're the heart and soul of that offense too. So
yeah, that's crazy. And like he said, the emotion when they seen him run out to take onto the field the first time to take that. I know his parents were probably like my parents, like, no way, right? No, you're not doing it. Well, okay, go ahead and do it. Just the emotion from all the other players, the parents there, and seeing that had to be obviously it was motivational to lift them up. But hopefully that motivation's gone, and Liberty Center doesn't have to deal with that this week.
Right. I mean, I guess if you're like on the other end of Huron, like you're not expecting this kid to play.
Yeah.
That's probably the last thing on your mind is, hey, he's out. He's not going to come in. Then you see him come out at halftime. You're like, this like a movie scene or what's going on here? I mean, honestly.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, this is like a feel good story. It really is.
Yep.
Going into I'm just looking here too, is going into this matchup between Liberty Center and Coldwater. I do like Liberty Center here, but the only thing that worries me is Coldwater has been there and done that before, and their head coach has been there a long time, and he's got 5 state championships. And B, you look at the last few weeks of the season with Liberty Center, they play someone like Evergreen. They win that game 48-7. They play Delta, beat them 51-14. Port Clinton 61-20. Liberty Benton 41-7. They really haven't been tested the last half of this season. And you look at Coldwater, on the other hand, they take a loss let's rewind it back, October 14th, so week 9. They go into overtime with Versailles and win by 1 point, 35-34. So they're tested in that game. Yep. You go to the next week, you play Marion Local. You drop that 1-0-35. And then in the playoffs, you win 41-7 against North Union. And then Huron, you battle with adversity, and you were struggling in that game and end up only winning that 14-3. So Coldwater has been battle tested here as of late, and that's the only thing that worries me, is because Coldwater knows what it takes to come from behind and win, or at least compete. And I don't think Liberty Center's been challenged to that point so far in the season, and that's the one thing that worries me, is because if you have a loss and you know what it takes to, or you're playing from behind, that's a whole nother ball game is playing from behind, and that's the one thing that worries me going into this game. But
play calling changes.
Yes, a lot. Your whole outlook on the game changes, but I'm favoring Liberty Center a little bit in this one.
Yep, just keep my fingers crossed and think that Liberty Center is just that damn good.
Yeah.
Maybe they are. So.
Let's look at the next game here. Looking in Division 6, Region 22, the 5 seed Columbus Grove 10-2 faces the 8 seed Colonel Crawford 10-2. That will be played at Donnell Stadium in Findlay, and that will be on, I believe, Saturday, because all Division 6, 7, I think, are playing on Saturday. So, looking at this one, I'm leaning towards Columbus Grove. But the thing Colonel Crawford did is they knocked off Cary, which they were the reigning Division 6 state champs. But again, Columbus Grove is a hard-nosed team. Again, I can't say enough about Tad Cook and AJ Schaefer, even Landon Schroeder from Columbus Grove. Those dudes are tough, and they play so well on the defensive side of the ball. And you look, those three combined have a combined 6 interceptions between them. You know, Tad Cook has 119 tackles. Landon Schroeder has 94 tackles. AJ Schaefer has 83. And just, you could go on and on about the stats, but those three dudes, they're going to make it tough on Colonel Crawford's offense. But what are your thoughts on this matchup here?
I just want to put it out there. They played Cary earlier in the season and lost 3-7. Yeah. So this was kind of another one of those matchups, follow-up matchups. They end up winning. So it's kind of like that Delphus Jefferson thing. It's like, how do they really match up on a game like that? But who knows?
Yeah, it's going to be different. I mean, they got a 1,000-yard rusher, 1,000-yard passer. Colonel Crawford's going to have their hands full, for sure. So I think Columbus Grove is going to be tough in this game, and hopefully they can come out there and battle it out.
Yeah, I think the Columbus Grove, as Logan said multiple times this year, Columbus Grove defense may actually have to, pull them through in this game here.
Yeah, I'm just looking too, and Colonel Crawford's got some dudes that can play too. You look at their quarterback Cameron Lohr. He's got a little over 1,600 passing yards on the year. This is something too that's really impressive. He's got a touchdown to interception ratio. He's got 22 passing touchdowns and 3 interceptions. So that's a very efficient quarterback right there. And then you look on the defensive side of the ball. You look at a guy like Gabe Thu, 152 tackles on the year. He's got 5 forced fumbles. So that that dude can ball out and play on the defensive side of the ball. So this is another pretty even matchup, I think, going into the game. And I think it's going to depend on who can pass the ball a little bit better, or at least be more multiple, I should say, because like we said with Columbus Grove earlier, it's going to come down to Renner really controlling the ball and stretching the field a little bit through the passing game, and then vice versa. You look at Colonel Crawford. We know they can pass the ball, but I think they gotta establish the rushing attack, which their running back Matt Clinard. He's got 798 rushing yards on the season. He's got 11 rushing touchdowns, but it's not quite as dominant as we see from Barraza for Columbus Grove. So, I think this is you can't go wrong with any of these games this weekend because they're all going to be close. Yeah. But again, I'm believing in Columbus Grove. I'm pulling for them. I think that they can get the job done. So not too far of a drive, I believe, for the teams either. I think probably Columbus Grove that's pretty close for them. Yep. So should be a pretty good crowd there.
They're playing in Findlay, right?
Yes. Yep. Okay. Yep. They're playing in Findlay at Donnell Stadium. All right, let's look at the next game here. Moving on to Division 7, Region 26, looking at the 2-seed Antwerp, 12-0, facing off against the 6-seed Gibsonburg, 10-2. And we saw Antwerp get pretty tested last week, and the football gods granted Antwerp with a win by 1 point, but I think they're going to have their hands full with Gibsonburg this week, and they're going to face probably, honestly, one of the best rushers in the nation as far as high school goes, and Connor Smith, running back from Gibsonburg. Yep. I was doing some research, and he currently sits 11th in the country in terms of rushing yards and 15th in terms of points accounted for, and this is according to Max Preps. Obviously, not all teams submit stats to Max Preps, but this kid's averaging 234.6 yards per game. He has 2,581 rushing yards on the year, 9.4 yards a carry, 35 rushing touchdowns, and 36 total touchdowns. And Connor Smith, also on the defensive side, leads the team in sacks with 4 and tackles with 139. So if I'm Antwerp, I'm putting all eyes on Connor Smith for Gibsonburg, and I'm knowing where he's at all times because that dude is going to be making plays. So what are you guys' thoughts on this matchup here?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the Highland team, the Tenora face. You're going to have to shut him down. You're going to have to go at his ankles, hit him low, take his feet out from underneath him, and then just have multiple helmets to the football. That's how Tenora was able to beat Highland, and Antwerp's going to do the exact same thing here to take him out. It's if you take him out of the game, I'm looking at kind of their passing attack. It looks like they're heavy run, obviously. So we'll see. See what Antwerp can do there, but they're going to have to go at take his legs away from him.
I'd say probably the only back that Antwerp's faced this year is probably Berner. That's, not even comparable as far as what he does. Yeah. Obviously, production's a lot more for the other one, but
And you look at passing attempts. You know how many passing attempts Gibsonburg has on the year? They have 21.
Passing attempts?
Right here, yeah, passing attempts.
That's what I was trying to find. I can't find passing yards.
It almost looks like a typo. Their quarterback, Mooney, who's a sophomore, he's 10 of 19 on the year, and they had a couple other kids throw a pass. It looks like Smith also threw a pass, but 21 passing attempts on the year.
That's not even 2 attempts a contest.
No.
That's almost unheard of.
No.
What in the world?
And then you compare that to rushing attempts for Gibsonburg. They had 415 on the year. So, like Tony said, I mean, you eliminate the running a game. I don't think they have any other go-to. So
Yeah, that's
It's almost one of those things that maybe you go and watch the Tenora Highland game to see how does a team, because Tenora and Antwerp are pretty comparable, how do you stop a running back like that? You know, it might be worth watching just to see, like, make sure you're hitting low like this, or, you know, focusing on these things, because yikes.
Or to go back in the old school movie vault, just go back and watch all the right moves and watch
there you go.
6'2" stack, 6'2" stack monster, 6'2" stack monster.
yeah. I would
Coach Nickerson.
I'm pretty sure Coach Hale's going to have the boys ready there, but I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. 8, 9 guys inside the tackles and keep them contained. And
I don't even know 8, 9. I'm talking 10, 11 guys in the box because I don't think there's any other doubt besides they're going to run the football 99% of the time.
One linebacker's tackling the quarterback, one linebacker's tackling the running back, and then everybody else just go get whoever. I mean, it's just that's obviously the guys that are going to be doing it. So, man, oh man, crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think going into that game, if Antwerp can shut down that running game from Gibsonburg, I think they win the game, and I don't think it's even close. If they shut that down and Gibsonburg doesn't have anywhere else to go, but I think this one, I'll be at this game actually Saturday covering it, but I really want to see how legit this Connor Smith, this running back for Gibsonburg is. So, I mean, he must be pretty good. I mean, to average 9.4 yards a carry throughout the year, I mean, that's a pretty impressive average in itself. But, I mean, you look at some of the teams that they played, really, I mean, they dropped their first game of the season to 8-2 Ottawa Hills team. They lost that game 35-13, which I think that's kind of concerning. And I know Ottawa Hills is a good team, but you look, they played a 1-9 team, a 4-6 team, 6-5 team, 5-5 team. They really haven't been all that tested. Probably the most quality win is against Margaretta team that was 8-3 on the year, and they only beat them by 3 points. And then last week's game against Waynesfield Goshen, they were 11-1 team. They won that 30-20. So I think this will probably be pretty battle-tested team to see how Antwerp does against Gibsonburg.
I'm just fascinated by this. How? I mean, it's 2022.
Throwing the ball 20 times?
How do you have 21 pass attempts in what, 12 weeks?
12 weeks.
Correct?
Yeah, 12
Yeah.
games.
And 2 of those were interceptions. So
I mean, they have 194 yards passing on the season.
you have 21 attempts on the year. You have 10 completions, and you have 2 interceptions out of those.
I wonder what kind of offense do they run? I mean, I just have a lot of questions here.
My question is,
I gotta go home and watch some game film on this.
what did Waynesfield Goshen do last week? You got to know that it's going to the running back. What did Gibsonburg do
a
that
good
was
question.
so confusing to
I
Waynesfield?
guess you could ask all the other teams that lost
Right,
Gibsonburg too.
Obviously, they're here for a reason.
right.
A lot of these teams, like you said, though, they're not, 0-10, 2-8, 1-9. So, like, some of those teams, it's not really that big of a surprise. But when you go up against Waynesfield Goshen, it's 11-1. That's a good team, and they still put up that many yards. Like,
Hey, they were the number 3 seed, so
Yeah.
it's Antwerp's number 2.
The 5 seed. Gibsonburg's 5 seed.
Oh, that's right. Yes, 5 6 seed.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the stats, like you're saying, Keith. They're averaging 17.6 yards per game passing, not even averaging 1 completion per game, according to what this says.
Wow.
21 passing attempts. They've got 0.9 completions per game, but they do have 4 passing TDs. So out of the 10 completions, 4 of them for touchdowns.
Try to sneak a tight end.
Yeah,
you kind of buff at the line like you're going to block, and you sneak him out there. You're going to be there's going to be nobody around them because you're expecting them to run.
But yeah, they rushed for 3,551 yards as a team. Gee, many Christmas. That's a lot.
That will for sure be an interesting matchup because, like you said too, if you're Antwerp, you're putting everyone on your team in that box, and you're just trying to shut that run game down. So, and obviously Gibsonburg's been successful at it, so something must be working. And I don't know how teams don't stop that.
Right,
so,
Connor Smith, 5'8", 180 pounds. Way different than
it's not the Nauman kid from Highland.
He was 6 foot 215 or something.
Yeah, he was a big back.
True.
So totally different. So he must be pretty shifty and elusive. That's all I can say. But you better get multiple hats to the football.
All right, let's look at the last matchup here. Looking at Division 4, Region 14, the 6 seed Van Wert, 11-1, faces off against the 2 seed West Holmes, 12-0. I think this is going to be the biggest challenge Van Wert's faced all year. West Holmes is a legit team at going undefeated on the year. They blew out St. Mary's 56-21, and you kind of look because Van Wert faced St. Mary's too. Kind of comparable scores. Van Wert beat St. Mary's in the regular season 70-41, and West Holmes beat them 56-21. So I think this could be a close one, but again, we talked about Aiden Pratt. He was the WBL Offensive Back of the Year. They've got the Offensive Lineman of the Year in the WBL and Logan Dotson. They also got so many good skilled players. You have Brylan Parker was a first-teamer. Maddox Crutchfield was a first-teamer. Jason House was a first-teamer. So, I could keep going on and on with all the list of great athletes and all the accolades they already have. But what are your guys' thoughts on this matchup here between Van Wert and West Holmes?
I think Aiden Pratt's, you just go in there and just throw the ball over the field, honestly. If I was, that's seriously. Yeah, you have the Offensive Player of the Year, just go out there and let him throw it around. He's going to be tough. You look at the other, look at defensive-wise, what can we do to stop him? But if, you're Pratt, whoops. A lot of motions here. But yeah, if you're Pratt, you just want to go out there and prove your worth to show that, hey, I am the player of the year, and just
absolutely.
Honestly, you stop me is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, exactly. You don't go out there worried about how you're going to stop them.
No, right.
Obviously, it looks like both teams throw up a bunch of points. I just kind of looked down through West Holmes' schedule there: 51, 56, 56, 48, 48, 63, 60. They're throwing up points.
Yep.
So obviously they got an offense, and it could be just one of those. Who outscores who and who scores last? You know what I mean? It's going to be who scores that touchdown last. But I'm looking at West Holmes' schedule, guys. I'm not real impressed. They're 12-0, but there's a 6-5 team. They did beat Mansfield Senior. It was 10-2. So they beat them pretty handily, 37-7. But beat Madison Comprehensive. They were 1-9. Worcester was 4-6. Lexington 3-7. And Mount Vernon was 1-9. They did knock off some teams that were 6-5. But and then St. Mary's was 9-3. They beat them, but so you don't know. I don't know. You look at Van Wert's schedule; it's not a whole lot better, but
typically I would agree with you on that one with the strength of schedule. But then you look at the point differential of points for versus against. Yeah. Did a quick calculation before this. It was West Holmes has scored 614 points this year and have only given up 151. That's a difference of 463 points.
That's a lot.
So even if they aren't playing some of the toughest schedule, they are absolutely decimating anybody that they play.
Yeah, right.
So it's like, it might be an easier schedule, but I don't know that I take that in consideration in this case.
No doubt in my mind that this game is going to be a barn burner of two high-powered offenses because you look and both teams have scored a lot of points this season. But I think, too, Keith, going back to your comment, I think if you're head coach for Van Wert, Keith Recker, I think you just put the game plan and the ball and your star quarterback, Aiden Pratt, who's a potential Division I player, and you let him take care of business because he's done so year long. So I think if they do that, I think they'll be in good shape because they've got a lot of good weapons on the outside edges and even at running back.
Just not put everything on his shoulders, but hey, you worry about stopping us. That's going to that game plan.
There's only one guarantee I would make on this game, and that would be if you were going to take a bet, I would bet the over. Unless it's 100, because it's probably going to be like 100 points.
What would you say? What would you say the over/under for this game is?
Oh my gosh! If they were actually going to do the over/under in this game, I'd probably around the 80 mark.
I would say.
I would take the 80 and. But yeah, that's when you look at the points these guys have scored from, both Van Wert and like AJ just said, they scored 600 points. Van Wert's no slouch either. They beat Kenton 77-20.
Yeah.
And they scored 70 against St. Mary. So it's it's going to be an offensive shootout, I believe.
And if you like offense and you like a lot of points, this is the game for you because there's going to be a lot of touchdowns and a lot of celebrating from both sides in this game here. So.
A turnover will probably be the difference in the game, or maybe a block punt or a block field goal.
Special teams.
Van Wert's been on both sides of that, right? They've had a block punt to cost them the win, and they blocked a field goal that helped them secure the win. So who knows? But special teams and a turnover probably would be the difference in the game.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take a break, and then we'll move on to our next section. And we got a special guest calling in, so stay tuned. Fairchild Family Chiropractic aims to help families to get better together in the least invasive way possible. Dr. Fairchild focuses on the neck using the Blair technique and Palmer package, adjusting to correct spinal misalignments. Located in Defiance, Ohio, call Dr. Fairchild today at 419-576-5070 to schedule an appointment. Northwest Ohio Basketball hosts premier basketball tournaments for boys in grades 3 to 8 in the area. Upcoming tournaments are right around the corner. Give them a call today at 419-283-5296 or check out their website at nwoball.com. Crystal Vasquez of Amerimaid Realty is a top real estate agent in Northwest Ohio. Crystal's compassion and enthusiasm allow her to find that special property or house just for you. Located in Bryan, Ohio, give her a call today at 419-799-1243. Back on the NWO Sports Podcast, and we're to our call-in section, and we're with Liberty Center head football coach Casey Mohler. And Coach, I just want to go ahead and congratulate you on the big playoff win last week against Liberty Benton.
Thanks. It was a big win for us, and it was a hard-fought win too. It wasn't easy.
First question I got for you here, Coach. All year long, your offensive and defensive line have been big talking points from fans and Northwest Ohio football enthusiasts. I had a chance to actually watch them the first game of the season against Sonora, and they absolutely manhandled them up front and are probably one of the bigger lines in the area. What are your thoughts on the offensive and defensive line play throughout this season to this point?
Well, it's certainly been our strength for the whole season. And that was kind of what we expected coming into the season with Owen Box being a senior and the way he's played the last 3 years. We knew he was going to be really special. And then Landon Bockelman last year as a sophomore was very solid for us and, suffered an injury at the end of the season. And we didn't have him for the playoffs, but his off-season work was outstanding, and we knew he was bigger and stronger than he was the year before. And Seth Navarre, as a sophomore last year, really surprised us. We did not count on him really giving us any minutes last year, and he really played at a high level and started for us and made some big plays. So coming into this year, we were counting on those guys to be really stout for us, especially on the defensive line. And then flipping around and being really good offensively as well. And then we've just had some other guys, step in and give us some really solid play as well.
Yeah, and I would totally agree because just following your guys' team year long, and those guys have really all stepped up, and they continue to lead the way for your team. And it's just awesome to see such a dominant upfront attack on both sides of the ball. Next question I have for you here, Coach, is during the year, Zane Zeider has played very efficient football and has earned a first-team All-NWO OAL conference selection. From watching him play, just his composure and the way he runs the offense and he takes control of the team, what does it mean to have a player like Zane on your team?
Well, he certainly adds a different element and allows you to do a lot that, maybe just a typical player doesn't allow you to do. He's very explosive, got good speed, and he's got really good strength, especially in the lower half of his body. He's got really strong legs. He's very springy. When you have a quarterback that is mobile and can run, it puts a little bit more pressure on defense because now you've got an extra blocker for that quarterback, and it's harder to account for him. But his passing has gotten much better this year as well. And just his knowledge of the offense and really, what we are asking him to do and how to do it and and reading defenses just so much better this year than it was last year. And, last year was the first year he'd played since 7th grade, so it took him a while to get going. And this year he just really hit the ground running. And a lot of that is a tribute to his off-season work. He put a lot of time in the weight room, but he also just threw all summer long to anybody who would throw with him, and it's made him a much better player.
Yeah, that's just awesome to have a player like that who puts in the hard work and the effort, and even to have something like that in your back pocket. I know you guys have such a dominant rushing game, but to have someone like Zane where he can burn you in the run game or the pass game, that's just another weapon that defenses have to scheme against. So he's definitely a great player. But next question I have for you is, you've been coaching for many years and have been with Liberty Center for a long time, and your team this year has been so dominant, and you guys are surely have something special going on. How does this year's team compare to years past, and what do you think has allowed your team to be so commanding this season?
Well, in years past, we've had some really good teams. And this year's team, I would say, is right up there with some of the best that we've had. Going all the way back to my first year in 2000, we were a state semifinalist team. And this year's team is really kind of an old school mentality where they just want to be really as physical as possible. We talked about kind of our interior linemen, but even outside of them, we look at our linebackers and our DBs and our running backs, and, everybody just kind of has this mentality that we want to be as physical as possible. And that kind of goes back to, the late 90s and the early 2000s teams that Liberty had. And this group ranks right up there with them. And in years past, we've had some good teams and we've had some really good, areas that were strong. We've had some years where the line was really good, some years where we had really good skill guys. But this year's team, I think, is very well-rounded. We're pretty, obviously very solid up front on the lines, but even in our skill areas, we've got some really good players. And so, it's a very, very good team, and they've really gelled together and play very well together.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, because when we were able to watch some of the Liberty Center games, all of the players on the team, they all play so hard and so physical, and it's almost as if it's contagious on your team, and that's just awesome to see how it's just preached so much on the team, and that's a vibe that you guys continue to repeat, and it just goes to show that physicality too, and just watching the games too. Some of the hits that your guys have been making are very impressive, and there's always multiple hats on the ball. So I give you huge props again for coaching that physicality, and I still think that starts from the top with you. So definitely doing a nice job there. So guys back here, do you guys have any questions for Coach Mohler?
Yeah, I do. Hey, Coach, this is Tony. Quick question for you. We covered the first game of the year with Sonora Rams Live there when you guys played Sonora, and you guys kind of shocked me when it came out. It's like you guys came out and the kids just kept running out. You really remind me of kind of one of those MAC schools. You just like the clowns just kept getting out of the car kind of thing. How have you developed I guess the pride and the love of the game to get, how do you guys got 60, 70 kids on the team?
Yeah, when we're all healthy, we've got about 65 kids. And a lot of that is just a tribute to our community. A lot of the kids that we have on our team are children of guys that played back in the 90s with Coach Lindgren when we really started our run of success here. And they understand the tradition and what's expected. And the other thing is, our youth program has done a really good job of getting kids excited about football. And they make it very, very fun for the kids. And our numbers in our youth program have just been really good and really high. And then when they get into junior high, those junior high coaches just make it an enjoyable experience. So by the time they come to high school, the kids love being around football, and we try to make it, an experience that these kids will remember forever, even at the high school level. We've got kids that maybe don't play a whole lot, but at the end of the year, they say they wouldn't trade the experience for anything, because we do. Our guys do a good job of making it a family-like atmosphere, including everybody. And I attribute some of that to my assistant coaches. They build great relationships with kids, and the kids want to be on the team. They want to play for each other, and they want to play for those assistant coaches who develop those relationships. So it's kind of a combination of the community, the coaching staff, and then, our seniors the last couple of years have done a great job of really building relationships with the younger guys, and they respect each other so much, and it's just kind of built our numbers up.
Oh, that's awesome. Because when we watched you guys run out on the field, I just like, man, how does a school like Liberty Center bring out 65 kids? It was pretty impressive, and I was glad to hear that answer, because that's something I'll definitely take back with us.
Hey, Coach, how you doing? This is Keith.
Good.
You had black and orange through your blood for, it seems like, about 4 decades now as a player and an assistant coach and now the head coach. What is the biggest difference that you've seen as far as a player for Liberty Center and now as a head coach in, say, the last 30 years? What's the biggest transition?
Oh, geez. I mean, the more the game has changed, the more it's really stayed the same. I think the way that you practice has changed in football, I think, across, all schools, with safety being a priority. And the other thing is, I think the way coaches coach kids, in the 80s and 90s and before that, it was, I think, definitely a drill sergeant type of mentality with coaches and stuff like that. And I think you can do that to an extent with today's kids, but I think for sustainability, I don't know how long that is going to last. I think that can wear people out and stuff like that. So just the style of coaching is a little bit different. And really, you go to clinics and listen to other coaches speak, and they talk a lot about building relationships with kids. And when you build those relationships, and then you can get those kids to do things. Whereas I think when I was a player and early on in coaching, it was, you do it because I said so. And,
right.
I just don't think you get a lot of that anymore. And if you do, I don't think you're going to last too long.
Agree. One more I have for you, Coach. It's like Liberty Center is almost like the fictitious town for Friday Night Lights, the TV show Dylan, where like the whole community, it's almost like a celebration on a Friday night. Like, what does that feel like, basically 6-8 times a year, to have the whole town come out and watch you play on a Friday night under the lights? What's that feel like?
Well, it's awesome. I mean, it's really special, especially when you look at the amount of money and effort the school and the community has pumped into the facility.
Oh, yeah.
And, for a school our size to have the turf and the stadium that we do is awesome. And we let our kids know that, and they realize that, it's pretty special. And then when you see the crowd, pack the stands, and you get little kids lining up, kind of the gate we come through on the field, and the way that the community treats these kids, it is awesome. And it's, I guess, like a mini version of Friday Night Lights.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
And, and then we go and look, and sometimes you see, the opponent where half the stands are full, and it's like the only people there are the parents. And, it does make you appreciate the fact that our community loves football and supports it. And we know, winning brings some of that about. So when you're successful, more people are going to come. But, it's just really neat. And, it does bring with it high expectations as well. We know that the community expects us to win and expects us to be competitive. And, even in the off season, when I'm out and about in the community, the first thing people ask me is about football and everything else, and complete strangers I don't even know are asking me and telling me a great job. And, it's very humbling, to be honest with you, because, these people, don't even have kids in school, are asking you and supporting you and stopping you in the street. And it's just, it's really neat.
Hey, Coach, this is AJ here. I don't really have any questions because these guys pretty much covered the ones I wanted to talk about. But I just wanted to say congratulations on such a successful season so far, and good luck to this week's game. It's going to be another big one for you, and I'm rooting for you all the way.
Great, thanks. We appreciate it, and I think our kids know it's going to be a big game, and when you get to play football in November, it's pretty awesome.
Yep, yeah, absolutely.
Last question for you here, Coach. What does the matchup look like this coming week?
Well, I think for us, it's going to be, a really tough matchup for us. Coldwater is, a typical MAC school. They're very physical. And as for as physical as we've been, this year, we're going to come up against somebody who's probably just as physical as we are. We're not going to intimidate them by hitting them. They're used to it. They've been through that. They've been through the war, so to speak. But they've got decent size inside. They're going to match us, size-wise, I think, on the interior. They're very well coached, obviously. Their program speaks for itself. And their big guys are athletic. And then in the skill positions, they just got all kinds of athletes. So they might have 4 receivers on the field that are very athletic, and they can bring in 3 or 4 more guys off the sideline that are just as athletic. So their depth is very, very good. And, talking about us having, 60-plus kids, they're trotting out like 75.
Yeah.
So,
I was actually going to ask you, Coach, I'm sorry, do you have enough room in the locker room for all these kids for both teams?
I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But, that's – they're a little bit different than us offensively and defensively, schematically. But really, both programs are going to try to do the same thing. We're going to try to control the line of scrimmage and be very physical, run to the football as a team on defense, and just try to, control things that way. And, so like I said, we're going to have our work cut out for us, but it's a great opportunity for us. And, they're kind of where we want to be. And so our kids are excited for the challenge and, really looking forward to the opportunity.
Yeah, Coach, that's all we got for you, but we all here want to wish you good luck, and we'll be rooting you guys on, and as you guys represent the Northwest Ohio area and football programs around us. So good luck this week, upcoming week, and go out and get a win for us.
Thanks. We appreciate it. And, I want to thank you guys for all you do in promoting, high school football and sports around Northwest Ohio. I think the more you can do that, the better off the sport's going to be and the better product everybody's going to put on the field. So I want to thank you guys for that.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you. Bye.
Again, these coaches we keep having on. What great coaches. I tell you what.
Week after week, just keep, I'm a coach myself, so as they're talking, I'm just trying to absorb all this stuff. It's every week you hear just something else that kind of like, oh, don't take that back. Just keep that in mind.
Just being a sponge and taking everything in.
Absolutely. Some great people there. I mean, like I said, we've talked to some great coaches with a lot of experience. So,
and that's something too he noted, and I think I kind of mentioned it earlier. Is these two programs are very so much alike, and as terms of physicality and the way they have such rich traditions too. So definitely going to be a good one. So you'll want to go out and watch it.
Yeah, I mean Liberty Center is going to be. I mean they're not. I don't think they're going to throw anything at Liberty Center they haven't seen. No. Liberty Center faced Bryan and Delta. They got good running games. Archbold's got a good running game, and also got the passing games at Liberty Benton, Archbold, and so they're balanced. They'll be okay either way.
Yeah, Liberty Center's not flashy. I mean, Coach Linger and Coach Mohler, they are what they are. I mean,
they're going to go out there and play smash mouth football.
Absolutely.
And I think too, Coldwater is going to be the first true test for Liberty Center. Of a team that can match them in terms of physicality and playing that type of smash mouth football. So,
and that's the thing I think he mentioned in there that I really liked was that, when you get to this point in the playoffs, you get to the point where you're in the regional semifinals. You're going to play teams that have been smacked. Especially like a Coldwater team, like he said, they've been smacked in the mouth. You're not going to surprise them by going out there and pounding them really hard. They're there. They've been doing that. So, you just got to have to play your game and, try not to vary it too much and try to make too much crazy stuff happen.
I mean, you're at this point in the season, you're going to keep doing what's been working for you.
Right.
I mean, obviously, you're going to make little adjustments here and there as far as schematics and maybe a little bit on play calling, but I mean, why change something now? So, I mean,
Right.
what's working is working. So, again, that's going to be a great game to see. So, let's go ahead. We'll move on to our playoffs round 3 game predictions. So, the numbers keep getting smaller and smaller. So we have just 4 games this week, but there's some big ones. And Keith and AJ need to hit all these to try to win the title for most games picked correctly. So let's look at the first matchup here. Liberty Center 12-0 against Coldwater 11-1, and we kind of discussed this, but I'm going to take the Tigers on this one. I really like the way they're playing right now. I obviously we haven't got to see Coldwater play in person, but the physicality and the size of the offensive and defensive lines for Liberty Center, I think that's what's going to win it. I think they're gonna out physical Coldwater's lines, and they're going to win the game in the trenches, which is going to allow them to pull out a big W for the Liberty Center Tigers.
Yeah, I'm with you, Logan. Liberty Center is just one of those teams that seems to have everything rolling offensively, defensively. Like I said, not flashy on offense. It's just, hey, here's what we're going to do. I mean, just stop us. So, taking the Tigers.
Tigers here.
Liberty Center for me, I think that's going to be a battle.
And Bryce at Liberty Center. So Liberty Center across the board. Next game, Van Wert 11-1 against West Holmes 12-0. And we kind of mentioned it before that this one's going to be a barn burner, but I think at the end of the day, I think West Holmes, I think they're going to pull it out. I think it will be a high-scoring game, and as Tony said, the over-under's probably put it at 80, so you better believe it. You're taking the over on this one, but I think West Holmes has just got maybe a little too much, and they're going to pull out a win against Van Wert, so I'm going West Holmes.
I took West Holmes as well, and taking the over.
Yeah, I'm good. Definitely taking the over on that one, but I'm going to go with West Holmes.
I had West Holmes, and I just switched it to Van Wert because I think Van Wert, with the victory they had this past week, I think is just going to build momentum, and I think they're going to be able to go in there and take West Holmes out. Like Keith was saying, let Aiden Pratt, let him do his job. So Van Wert for me.
And Bryce had Van Wert, so we were split on this one, but I feel like this game is one you could flip a coin, and it could go either way. So
And plus, I got to try to gain a game back on Logan. So
that too. So
going for broke here, boys.
That's a good strategy. So let's look at the next game here. Antwerp 12-0 against Gibsonburg 10-2, and this will be our NWO Sports Game of the Week. I'll be there covering this one. So I think, again, if Antwerp shuts down Gibsonburg's running back, it's game over, and I think the Archers pull out the win. So I think Coach Hale and staff's going to put together a good game plan to shut down Connor Smith and the Gibsonburg rushing attack, and I think Antwerp's going to be pretty happy going to the regional finals.
Yeah, I took Antwerp. I think last week was actually a good test for the Archers. I mean, really all hope was lost. I mean, and took a struck of luck, and I think Antwerp carries that a little bit farther.
Agreed.
Yeah, it really kind of showed Antwerp's grit coming down to the line when they're down with only 2 minutes, no timeouts. He really shows what they're capable of. They stick with it. So I'm going with Antwerp.
Yeah, I'm going with Antwerp, but I'm a little worried to make sure everybody's healthy. You guys mentioned that a little bit earlier that, at least he wasn't on that last drive. If he's not in there, especially defensively, that's going to be huge for Antwerp to be able to stop Gibsonburg. But the Archers moved to 13-0, I hope.
And Bryce had Antwerp, so Antwerp across the board from all of us. And, like you said, Tony, I mean, that would be a huge loss. And we talk about it time and time again. You get late in the playoffs here, it's a matter of who's healthy and how many are healthy because guys really start getting banged up. And if you lose a leader and a stud player like that could be detrimental. Yeah. So hopefully everyone on both sides of both teams, I should say, are healthy going into this matchup. Last game here, Columbus Grove 10-2 against Colonel Crawford 10-2, and we discussed this. Colonel Crawford's coming off a big win against Cary, but again, it was the second matchup during the year. But I like the way Columbus Grove is playing now. I think if Brenton Renner, for quarterback for Columbus Grove, can control the ball and not commit any turnovers and also stretch the field a little bit in the pass game. I'm not saying he has to go out there and throw for 200-300 yards, but if he could throw for 100-150, a passing touchdown just to keep Colonel Crawford honest because they've got some dudes on defense that can play, I think they'll win. So I'm going Columbus Grove on this one.
I'm right with you, Logan. Got Columbus Grove.
Columbus Grove.
Columbus Grove for me.
and Bryce had Colonel Crawford. I was like, almost said Columbus Grove. Bryce had Colonel Crawford. So he was the only one that went against everyone. And I think Bryce's strategy's been paying off the last couple of weeks. So I don't know. Maybe he'll be right. But everyone else had Columbus Grove. So, well, that concludes the podcast. So what are you guys' closing thoughts going into round 3 of playoffs?
Man, a big week of games coming up. And, if they're just getting moving closer to that state championship. And just hope the area teams, the Liberty Center and Antwerp and Columbus Groves guys can keep everything moving, keep it rolling for Northwest Ohio.
Yep.
And that's something looking at all these matchups, all these teams that we're still covering in the area have a fair shot at winning the game. So I don't think there's any blowouts by any means. And you get to this point in the playoffs, you're doing some good things as a team. But I think this week is really going to be a challenge, A, because you're getting further in the playoffs, but B, the weather's going to be a factor as well. Things are going to cool down quite a bit. It's actually going to feel like some football weather out there, not like you're playing on a beach or something like that. But I'm excited to see a lot of these good matchups, and there should be a lot of good crowds at all these games,
Absolutely.
too.
And one game that's just a little bit out of the coverage area is that Elmwood-Eastwood game is going to be another barn burner. I mean, that's one of those that was originally scheduled for Napoleon, which I actually made my plans on Friday. Hey, we go check that game out, but then they moved to the BG, so it's like, But, that game right there is, should be a high-scoring affair as well, so.
That'll be interesting because that's Division 5, Region 18.
Yep,
the winner of that game will play the winner of Liberty Center and Coldwater.
Yep, correct.
And I tell you what, whoever comes out of those two matchups, that's going to be one heck of a regional final matchup.
See like an Elmwood LC final would just be that defense against that offense. That'd be a great matchup. But we'll see.
I really want to see our prediction from the preseason podcast is whoever comes out of Region 18, Division 5, Region 18 is going to be the state champion. And I really think after watching these teams play, we got to watch Elmwood firsthand and Liberty Center. And man, I'm telling you, I think whoever comes out of Region 5 or Division 5, Region 18 is going to be the state champ. It'll be interesting. I'm just kind of curious to see how that works out.
All right. Well, if no one else has anything to say, go ahead, get out there and support your teams. And even if you're not from those schools, go out there and watch a couple good football games. Some of them are a little longer drive, but they'll be well worth it for paying, I think it's like $10 or so for a ticket.
I want to wear a coat.
Yeah. Bring your warm gear too, because bring a hat, bring a coat, bring a couple layers, maybe a blanket here or there. But
it'll be a little different than the last few weeks.
Yeah, bundle up and get ready to watch some good Northwest Ohio football. So you'll definitely not be disappointed. But we'd like to give a thanks to all of our sponsors: 3 Chord, Bat and Stevens Body Shop, Tenor Rams Live, Jimenez Basketball Academy, Fairchild Family Chiropractic, NWO Basketball, and Crystal Vasquez of Amerimaid Realty. We would like to give a special thanks to Jeff Batt for allowing us to use his amazing new facility at Bat and Stevens Body Shop for today's podcast and all future podcasts. Stay tuned for the next NWO Sports Podcast in the near future. They're winding down, so continue to watch them. And thanks for watching.